Okay, today we're going to go over the Dodge Burn Sponge, Red Eye, and History tool. It's a lot of different tools, but they all work really well, and you can have a lot of fun with changing your images and fixing your images, editing your photos so that you look really nice. So it's number 16 on the blog. What you're going to do is 3 different things that you will turn in on your blog as a gallery. Number 1, you're going to brighten up the girl's teeth and get rid of the shine on her face and the green in her hair using the Dodge Burn and Sponge tools, and that will be this image. Number 2, you're going to get rid of the kid's red eyes using the red eye tool, and that's this image. And then using an image of your own, you're going to turn it into black and white and use the history brush to add some of the color back. When you post it to your blog, you're going to post it as titled Dodge Burn Sponge Tool, and you'll have it as a gallery with the 3 images. So to get these 2 images down here, you need to click on them, let them open up, right click, and save image as, and then save it into your folder. And you'll do that with both of these images. Save image, go to your digital art folder, and then save it. Then you'll also need an image, like I said, that has color in it that we're going to use the history tool with. So then go into Photoshop, and then you'll find these 2 images, A Million Red Eyes and Interior Shot. And then also open up the image that you saved that has color in it. Yeah, we'll do this one. So the first tool that we're going to use is the red eye tool. And if you go right below the eyedropper tool, it probably starts out as this Band-Aid. That is the spot healing brush. So the shortcut for this tool is J. And if you go to the red eye tool, then you can zoom in and picture still when you take a photograph, the flash that's on the camera, when it flashes, the light that's refracted can change the color of your pupil to red. And so up here at the top, when you have the red eye open, you'll see pupil size and darken amount. You can change both of those depending on the size of the pupil. I just leave it at 50% for both. And then you see if you click inside, all I did was click inside the pupil and it turned it to a black color, but not completely black. You can go in on these dots and see how it does it as well. And that's it for the red eye. So then you save this one as a JPEG, and then you'll turn it into your blog in a minute. So save that one as a JPEG. The next tool that I'm going to show you is the history tool. If you go right below this, you have your paintbrush, and then you have the clone stamp, then you have the history tool. If you click and hold, the shortcut key is Y. If you click on history brush tool, that's the one we're going to use. You need to have your history open. And the first thing you're going to do is go into adjustments and desaturate. Then it changes your whole image to black and white. In your history tool, where it says desaturate, to the left there's a little square. If you click on that square, that's where it's going to set the source for the history brush. Then you go back a step to open. Then with your history brush tool, you'll paint in and then see it's changing that part of the image to be black and white. Of course, you'll want to zoom in and change your brush size so that then you have a good selection and you're not getting into your image like I did. Okay, so you can do that with the history brush tool. You also can, in your history up here, if you don't like that, you can go back to start, okay? Then what you can do is you can go into your image adjustments and say you want to just change the hue and saturation, and you want to take away some of the saturation, you don't want it to be completely black and white, then you can say okay. And then you can change this source for the history source and move it up to here, to this spot. Go back to the opening, and then with your history brush, let's go in and paint over the flowers, and then we're desaturating them just a little bit so they're not so bright. So there's lots of different things that you can do with the history brush tool. If you take a photograph in one spot, it's way too bright or not as vibrant, then you can go in and change that image. So this one you want to save as a JPEG as well so that you can turn it into your blog. Then the last tool that we're going to use, if you go down farther, probably the Dodge will be up. It looks kind of like a lollipop, and it is O for the shortcut key. Dodge lightens areas. Burn darkens areas, and sponge desaturates areas. So if you look at this picture of this girl, she's a pretty girl, but if you zoom in, you'll notice that her teeth are not perfectly white like we like them to be. So what you can do and this is really cool that you can do with your own images, using the sponge tool up at the top, you can desaturate or just saturate. So we're just going to desaturate and leave it at 50%. If I go over her teeth, and I'm going over her gums also. Let's go back to open and try it again. It's trying to do the history brush. Okay, so I have it at desaturate, and I can turn the flow up to 100%. If I go over it, you see how everything is turning gray that I'm going over? So that's the desaturation. So when you're doing this, you want to change your brush size, and you don't want to get into the gums or onto her lips. So if I go over her teeth, and you see it's turning her teeth kind of gray, but what we're going to do after is going to change that and brighten her teeth all up. Okay, so we'll go over each of those areas. Then, if you change your sponge tool to your dodge tool, remember the dodge tool is to brighten things up. Up at the top with the dodge tool, you can change the range to the shadows, midtones, or highlights depending on what you're working with. And then it will protect the tones as well if you have this checked, so that it keeps all of those different values. Okay, so now I'll go in, make my brush smaller, and I'll brighten this up. And then you see how white her teeth are getting. So now, if I go to my history tool and I go back to the beginning, here's how her teeth looked to begin with, and now here's what we did. So we brightened them up and they look nice and white. The other thing that you can do with the dodge tool, if you go in and you see these areas over here that are a little bit darker, and in her hair it's a little bit darker, it's a little bit greenish looking over here in her hair. So we can brighten those areas up by going over it. Okay, see how it's brightened her those areas up, because you don't like those shadows. When you take images of people, you want to make sure that as you're taking them, that the shadows are right, that the lighting is good, because when you have too many shadows, then it doesn't look quite as nice. So you can go in and brighten those up with that tool. Okay, so we can go through different areas, and you can change this midtones. We can go into shadows, because this is really dark and shadowy right here, then it will really brighten it up. Okay, with the burn tool, I'm going to do a bad job first to show you. Again, with the range, you can change it to shadows, midtones, highlights. So we're going to do it at midtones. And if I go on the exposure, you can change that as well. If we go move it up to 100%, then you see what happens. She gets a really bad fake tan, and it doesn't look very nice. Okay, So what you're going to do is you want to change the exposure as you're working with this depending on how bright areas are. And again, you can change it to highlights or midtones, and this is really kind of a highlight, okay? And go back to the midtones, and then you see how we're darkening up that area just a little bit so she's not so shiny. And I'm zoomed in so that I can get to those areas nice. Okay, then I can go in and I can darken up the sky if I want to. I can darken up her hair some so that then it all blends in and it doesn't look like she has these shiny areas. More times you go over it, the darker it's going to get. Okay, so then she looks like she's getting burned, which is what that is called, the burning tool, right? So you don't want to burn the girl. You want her to look nice. Okay, so you can go back as many steps as you want in the history tool and go back over it and change it and work with it. So this will help with your images to make them look nicer. When you're done with this one, you guys can just go ahead and mess around with this and try and make her look real nice, change the exposure, change it from highlights and shadows, do different things with it, and save it as a JPEG again. And then when you go to your blog and you turn it in, you're going to turn it in as a gallery again, remember, okay? All three images, the red eye, the dodge, burn, and sponge, and your history tool will all be in one image. And that's it for today.